Before we get started, my brother's car exploded. Help me replace it with the Give Send to Go link down in the description. Thanks, guys. Graveyard Grams Midnight Ride. Tonight's subject is a convergence of things. Call it a common thread that's run through a couple of ideas that I've had this week. So much has been made of the Alien franchise. 45 years strong it's been running, and they just released the Romulus film a couple of weeks ago. I guess it's been doing pretty well. Like I've said, I haven't watched any of those. I'm just peripherally familiar with the climate protester. Got him. With the tropes of it. And in the first movie, from what I understand, like there was a ship that they find, and there's something called the Jockey on it. It's like this giant, weird space alien looking thing. It's never explained. It's just meant to be horrific and evocative and scary. And then apparently, like later in one of the other movies, like Prometheus or something, they explain what it is, and everybody hated the explanation. It reminds me of one of the lessons from the movie The Prestige, that the magician is teaching, when Christian Bale's character is teaching his wife. He goes, "You think that the trick is so cool until I show you how it's done, and then you're annoyed." It's because we would rather be intrigued and entertained. When you're watching a creative property or indulging in a creative property, maybe it's a game, a book, a film, you are walking through it with the creator, seeing his imagination, her invention, whatever it is. But then there's a part where they hand you the ball, and you get to kind of play with it yourself in your own imagination, not necessarily like, changing it or breaking it or whatever, but what you start to come up with. And it can be anything. You can take it into 100 different directions because you don't have the concrete answer. Can be of endless value to you. But once it's solidified and defined, oftentimes the response is, "Oh, huh." I was thinking of that as I was reading Glory Road by Robert Heinlein. It's one of his works that doesn't get as much attention as like Stranger in a Strange Land, Moon is a Harsh Mistress, Starship Troopers. I've read a couple of his books and generally liked them. I thought the Starship Troopers was really good. Different and superior to the movie, for sure. This one, it's set in the Gen X era. The main character is a guy, his initials are EZ, which didn't I just read a book about a character named EZ recently? Man, it starts to run together. His initials are EC, but his nickname is EZ. Anyway, like it starts as a generalized like beatnik era type thing, a guy trying to find his way out of the draft into an unnamed war in Southeast Asia. Like it's not Vietnam, but it's Vietnam. And he's able to dodge it and duck it for a little while, and then he ends up enlisting and thinks that he'll be able to control his career, and nope, and he just ends up getting sent to this army office in the middle of nowhere for a long time. And finally, when he gets cleared and he's heading back home, he stops over in France, and he meets this alluring, evocative, like supremely beautiful woman. And it turns out that she's got some kind of magical quality to her, and they hop into a portal fantasy type thing. Not really like a portal fantasy, but they go and walk the eponymous Glory Road. And she shows him like the unseen, hidden magic of the world, and they fight dragons, and general magical jiggery-pokery happens. And oddly enough, right about there was where I lost interest in the book. Up until that point, the voice was just incredibly strong. Like the writing was highly entertaining, and I would almost rather read almost like a Hunter S. Thompson style beatnik era narrative of a guy who was trying to not get roped into the draft and try to be above the times, as it were, because that was highly entertaining. The humor, the charm of it all, very, very well done. And then like right up to the point where he actually starts going and doing fantasy stuff with Star is her name. I was like, I'm oddly not as interested in this side of the story. Even though he's obviously head over heels for this chick, and there's something ethereal going on. Once he steps out of our world and into hers, I was like, oh, nah. I found it more interesting when he was in our world and he could sort of sense and feel around the edges of hers, but the full immersion kind of destroyed the charm. There were still moments when he had humorous banter and lines of dialogue. It was written in first person, and I thought that was really clever. That was a good turn of phrase. That was a good setup for a joke and a payoff that I didn't see coming. Like, he did all of that well. It was the immersion that lost the entertainment value for me, and ultimately I was just like, I'm not that interested in finishing this. I hopped online, I read a summary of it, and he decides to go like almost a pseudo-nihilistic route with finishing it up, where this guy completes the hero's journey. He gets to the end, he's got the girl and everything, and by the end of it he's just like, oh, this kind of sucks. I'm like, pseudo-nihilistic. No, that's actually nihilistic. It's like, what's the value in this? There's potentially value in the notion of setting yourself up for disappointment, and thinking that you'll be happier if you reach some higher level instead of finding a way to be happy now. And okay, there's some value to that. I've heard actors talk about that, like from when they were young and scrappy and anxious for success in their careers, and then when they finally got it, they still felt like they hadn't really got it. Like Alan Ritchson said on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast. This was years before he played Reacher or really had a whole ton of success as an actor. But he was getting parts and he was getting book deals. Like, he had all that stuff. And he's like, I got to the top and I realized there was nothing there. And he needed to find fulfillment in other ways. I think that there's something profound and practicable there. Finding purpose in where you're at. Like, have something to reach towards, and you can expect to find satisfaction in reaching that and in the fulfillment of it and everything. But like, constantly training yourself to assume that you'll be happier if something else happens, like, you only end up developing a skill that proves you will never be happy now. I'm going to cap this off by highlighting something from The Fellowship of the Ring, the book, not the movie, because it got left out of the movie. There kind of wasn't time and focus for it. But when Frodo was talking to Galadriel and she showed him the mirror, and he saw a future, and he was tempted, and he gave her the ring, or he tried to. There was also a scene where Sam was tempted. He got tested at the mirror, the well as well. And he got this panicked vision of something that might have been going wrong at the Shire. And he felt this horrible, like, pressing fear that he needed to get back, save his gaffer, save his hometown. And Galadriel, and she told him the lesson was, she's like, well, you've also got a friend here in need right in front of you, and that's Frodo. And we condition ourselves to looking so far down the road that we don't see what's in front of us sometimes. And it's possible to talk yourself out of doing what you need to be doing at the present, because you think that you're setting yourself up for success in the future. That's different from delayed gratification, beginning with the end in mind. We expect joy in the conclusion. We should do what we can to produce and find joy in the process. Going all the way back to the Alien reference at the beginning. That's not really a franchise about joy, it's about horror. And the horror wasn't in the conclusion or in the revelation. The horror was in the process. The horror was in, here's this terrifying thing that somebody obviously made and we know nothing about it. And that just shows like what we don't know and what we can't control that's out there in the galaxy. It satisfies the need of that genre. Fortunately for us, the purpose of life is not that it should be a horror piece. men are that they might have joy. And so, even as I head to work at 1:43 in the morning, and I've got a mountain of bills to pay, and I'm finally back on 5 days, and I'm actually glad to be on 5 days because it means I can pay those bills in this dog turd economy. Doing what I can to find joy in the process. Largely, that's why I write, because it makes me happy. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. That's kind of my review of Glory Road. Maybe I'll finish it at another time and come to a different conclusion. That's happened before with books. But for now, that sort of thing is not my bag, baby. Till next time, drive safe. See you out there.